Drew Yorke Show, live from the ISO radio space in Toronto, Ontario. It's a beautiful day outside today, and I have a really special guest, somebody that's been a really good friend and mentor and role model, and he's provided countless opportunities to me. It's been just been really a strong force in my life ever since I met him. He's also a terrific photographer. That's probably his greatest claim to fame. Toby, please come and join me.
What's up, man? Make me blush, bro.
Thanks for coming today.
It's my pleasure, brother.
You've been super busy lately. Like, you've been shooting like so much stuff. It seems like It's funny because it's like I feel like you used to just sort of post as you shot.
Yeah.
And now I see these like you posting these like long recaps of like all these events.
Yeah. It's been a kind of crazy year. It started off really quiet in the beginning of the year, which led to something else beautiful altogether. But besides that, things really picked up in the last 3 months, and it's been nonstop. Yeah, shooting a lot of events, done some food photography, gained some new clients, did some conceptual product photography as well. It's been a wild ride this year so far.
And we're only like halfway there. It's funny. I'm seeing blogs post of like best of the year so far, like all these different things, like best movies of the year so far, best albums of the year so far, and I feel like that's never been a thing.
Yeah, no.
And like 2019, there's like everything happens. I feel like things are coming so fast.
Well, the older you are, the faster the time goes by too, right? So like you sort of want to occupy your day and not just sit around. So you try to fill it with things, and now is more about balance for me personally. But yeah, that's a whole other topic altogether.
I wanted to start maybe at what was your earliest exposure to photography? I know you grew up in Taiwan. I was wondering if that was the exposure back then, or was that too early in your life?
My earliest memory of photography, really, there's two things I remember. One of them is me looking at our family photos, and like we had a little slide box. You put the slides in, it magnifies and backlights the slide. I loved doing that as a kid. Loved looking at photos of the family. Read a lot of mangas growing up. And Japanese manga always had a way of visual shorthanding lines and emotions and feelings and emotions, and so that sort of really set a precedence for me in terms of looking at things from a two-dimensional format. And then it wasn't until way later, I think I moved here, and it wasn't until I was in grade 6, grade 7 when my teacher were like, yo, this kid's got like artistic talent. I was really into drawing and just kind of like being on my own, like new kid in the country. My English wasn't fluent. I found a way to sort of, that was my in. Yeah. So visual art became my thing when I was a teenager. So like drawing and painting and so photorealism was my shtick. I wasn't into abstract or anything like that. And then I found photography somewhere along the line of grade 10. How old would I be in grade 10? I think I was like
15 maybe?
14, turning 15 or something like that, yeah. Yeah, I went to my first rave with my uncle's camera.
At 14?
At 14.
Holy shit.
Well, but that wasn't that young at the time.
Really?
Not in 99 at least.
I suppose I was going to concerts maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was like 13, 14. I suppose I was going to like rock concerts and stuff. So I guess that's the same kind of shit.
But with that being said, I mean, like it's like my first few times coming downtown. So like my first rave, I'm like, yo, it's 11 o'clock. It's fucking late. I'm worried. I need to go home. Like,
how did your parents feel about that?
Well, my dad wasn't really in the picture, but my mom was just like, there's not much you could do to stop me. I was pretty determined. Yeah. But I always came home. Right. I always took care of myself. That was my thing. And but anyway, yeah. They weren't pleased, but I was the cleanest kid. I never did drugs. Pretty sure I smoked weed, but like, I was not
pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure. But the people I was hanging around with always made sure that I wasn't on drugs, which was pretty dope for a kid, you know, my age at the time, and I was very lucky.
Yeah. And so you were like shooting from the beginning,
Right from
when
the
you were
get-go.
going to raves.
Raves, and there was for a while like a camera ban, and like nobody can bring their cameras inside, and there was no smartphone or camera phones at the time, so I would just sneak my camera in. You look for a backpack that has like undercover pouches and shit, and yeah, the fashion at the time was sort of dictated by that as well. So there's a few brands that would like have pockets inside the belt line.
Yeah.
And stuff. It's dope.
What kind of camera would that have been?
Oh, like, see, the thing that got me into photography wasn't so much photography, it was where I was with the photography. So it was a side of the world I've never seen before, and it really intrigued me. So I never was very technical in the beginning. So I had my uncle's camera with a bunch of lenses, and that was fully manual focus. Lost that. Different story for another day.
Jesus.
Yeah. And then, heartbreaking story too, by the way. And then my friend Clancy loaned me his, and that's how I entered into autofocus world. And I used that camera for like years and years. I still didn't know what any of the fucking things meant. ASP, and like I didn't have a manual. I just started shooting. I didn't know how to use flash. No formal education, like, you know. And how old was the internet? Internet was just like starting. There was no Google. There's Yahoo and Internet Explorer, that sort of shit. So I didn't think of it to look up. It wasn't a thing where you look up shit on the internet.
That was like late 90s, I think. Late 90s was probably early 2000s. That was when like Google was like really big.
You didn't used to think to look things up on the internet, right? Anyway. What a time.
You used to just have these I suppose people used to have these conversations. Like, I even remember from being younger where you'd have these conversations where like, I wonder how old this person is. Or I wonder how, like, what this is. And you just got to go home wondering.
You still got to reference it on encyclopedias. Yeah. Outdated information. So yeah, now, what were we talking about again?
Raves.
Yeah. So I didn't really get my formal photography education and the formal gear sort of on lockdown until years later, when I applied for a job at Henry's Camera downtown.
Of course.
When it was still a relatively small shop before Best Buy came along, right? It was like very, very small competition, and I sold used cameras and learned everything sort of backwards. Funny, because it's sort of the same way how I learn about music. I learn music backwards, from like what's hot now to like what came before it. One's coming over here. So fucking shit really sucked before internet. Like, you couldn't find stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny to me that like people before me that were sort of like music nerds or people that music journalists, that kind of like people that would have done what I'm doing like now, but before had to go and spend hours and hours in record stores to find, you know, like more obscure artists from different genres, to find new things or to find kind of different sounds or whatever.
You can't dabble back in the day. Like, there's no time for that.
Yeah, no playlists.
Yeah, and like there's a movie, fantastic movie, with John Cusack, called High Fidelity. Have you ever seen it?
No. Fantastic
watch. It's about a record store owner, and his sort of obsession with music and his misinformed and ill-guided love life.
I'll have to watch that.
It's beautiful. Fantastic watch. You'll love it. Jack Black is in it too. Before School of Rock. Yeah.
When did photography get serious? Like, when were there opportunities to make money? Like, how long do you have to shoot parties and stuff as a fun thing, as a hobby, before it was like, I want to take this more seriously, or before there was money?
That's a great question. I don't. So I got it in '99, and I don't think money was a thing until my second apartment. Second or third, because this whole time I had jobs. I either lived at home or had jobs, or both, whatever. And then I moved out, and then my second apartment, like I started making more connection, and that would have been, man, I am bad with years. It just feels like I've been doing this forever. I think I was around 21, 22 maybe. But I was still very misguided. I had no mentor. I was just sort of doing my thing, and the people that I came up with in a website called Toronto Jungle, which was where a lot of my pre-education prior to Henry's came along, were just a bunch of kids shooting photos. They all sort of one by one stopped doing photography. And as a matter of fact, now looking back, I'm the only person still doing photography.
That's interesting. I've heard a lot about that just through like through just conversation or through there's like a group on Facebook, the Toronto Rave community.
Yeah.
Like I know if people talk about it, they reference it.
So
like
really?
some of the older heads in that group will like reference that.
Yeah, so Toronto Jungle was pretty epic because next to Toronto Jungle there was 2 other entities, but no one was as big and powerful as Toronto Jungle. Maybe not powerful, that's not the right word, but it's a very specific like time period where that scene, which is so rich and so full of energy. Anyway, so I had to start figuring out what it is that I want to do because the retail aspect of the Henry's camera selling world was kind of getting tiresome.
Yeah.
So I've tried quitting a few times, but I had no plan. And it failed miserably a few times. I've had 2 studios as well. Again, I just like, I'll figure it out. But it didn't really work out. And part of me realized that it's important to be a jack of all trades in a sense of being multidisciplined. But it's also important to be an artist about it, meaning you have to sort of stick to one thing that you're really good at and let people know that that's your shit. But you can also do everything else, but that's your shit.
Yeah.
So I'm still owning on that. Like, it's not anywhere near where I wanted to be. But it's a working process. It needs to be, always.
When did you start visual-based photography? How long ago was that?
Oh, the awesome story of VisualBass involves me and my friend Alvaro in Scarborough, and we were driving around in his little broke down car. I forget Juby, name of the car.
Is it really?
Yeah, the shit was so ghetto, man. One day we were driving along the road. I think it was Brimley, and we stopped the car, red light, and then we started the car again, and then our car goes over a thing. We're like, what the fuck is that? It's the exhaust. The whole fucking thing with the tube and the tank came off. Yo, shit was ghetto. Anyway, we were not conspiring, but planning to do a book because me and him were becoming really, really tight via Toronto Jungle. He's just an amazing photographer. And we became really good friends, and we were coming up with names for a potential book for our photography in the jungle scene. And I was deeply influenced by a photographer named Roy De Carava, who has a book called The Sound We Saw. The Sound I Saw, and it documented the jazz era in Harlem and New York and Brooklyn.
Sick. That's sick. I gotta check that out.
White. I think I still have it. And so that was one of the names I sort of pitched in our little high of our fucking mind eating a large pizza out of his broke ass car meetings.
Yeah.
Right. So VisualBass was something that just always stuck with me, and it's still here.
And I know that you've at this point like shot like countless DJs.
Yeah.
Are there any experiences maybe that I know we had talked before this? I wasn't gonna have you prepare anything, but are there anything that comes to mind as like an experience that really sticks out among those? I know that like recently there's been like obviously like shooting at like places like having like you've shot almost all those like big events at like Rebel and like the pool bar at Cabana. It's like there's tons of like big talent there, but is there anything else that sticks out like among those experiences like from back in those days to now?
Well, it's different now. The experience is different in Toronto than that of Miami, than that of LA, and you know, I think a lot of people don't understand the way you approach people in Toronto's nightlife environment is a little less warm than you ought to be. I think people are a little too eager to be celebritized. So I think people are kind of a little too excited. I mean, like if you're a photographer in any environment, you need to be a fly on the wall first, and you need to sort of observe. Obviously, you need to also greet the right people and say hi and be interactive. But like, ultimately, you need to come from behind the camera, right? Rather than being in front of it. So I think people get a little carried away. What stood out to me over the years, just how nice a lot of the people are in and just hopelessly in love they are with their craft. I think that's the one big thing that stood out over time, is just how much dedication, how much time people put into this craft of performing on stage, playing music, putting on a show. The artistry behind it is massive. Like, and a lot of the stuff you can't teach. Like, you either have it or you don't. And you can always see it when somebody doesn't have it. But yeah, it's really beautiful, man. People have succeeded a lot in the last 20 years. Just seeing where rave was to what rave are now, it's crazy. Evolution, man.
There's a secret chapter of your life that I've never heard about.
Yeah.
Where you
not so secret. Not so secret.
Well, to me, you've never told me about it.
Right.
I guess I maybe I haven't asked about it.
Right.
That you owned a restaurant, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I co-owned a restaurant. And the restaurant's name is Starving Artist. The original location was on Lenstown and just north of DuPont. Yeah. And started that restaurant with a vision of it being a photo studio, and my ex-partner at the time, talked me into opening a restaurant. Never opened a restaurant. So, yeah, went from like a 35-inch waist to like I think like 27-inch. Like, yo, it was a horrible experience with a few minor exceptions. I met a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
Met my wife, namely.
Oh, really?
Yep. Love how to cook. Learn how to cook and love how to cook. Love making coffee. And also worked with a couple of musicians who are pretty big now in the Canadian scene that like came out of our wait staff and kitchen staff. So that was a pleasure.
Oh, yeah, you told me about this. Who is that? I can't remember.
Yeah. Wes Markel from the Darcys.
Yes.
And oh boy.
Shout out to Wes. I want to have them on the show pretty soon.
Yeah,
That would be
Wes,
sick.
what up? Mustache is sick. Did he shave it off yet? I forget.
I don't know. I think it's still there.
And then oh boy, I am having a brain fart right now. It's a duo, but a band. Hey July. Oh no, wait. What is it?
July Talk?
July Talk. Yeah. And I'm having a brain fart, man. I can't remember her name. Leia was our waitstaff
That's hilarious.
before they both blew up. It's pretty cool.
That's interesting. That's interesting how that sort of random connection that comes from that experience.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Is there anything that you like? I mean, I'm sure you learned a lot in that span of time. Is there anything that you sort of take with you that sort of maybe sticks in your mind even today?
What do you mean?
Just from the experience of like opening the restaurant to the end.
Oh yeah. Talk about everything, and if your partner's uncomfortable about talking about any of those things, something is wrong, and you need to everything needs to be in the open. Trust is it's a very, people can use that word in a very broad stroke. It's best to narrow that stroke. Talk about everything. Make sure everything is out in the open. And get a neutral lawyer, an accountant. Anything that has to do with money, get a neutral. That means like, oh, I know this person, or oh, I know that person. No, you guys go interview, go the long route, find the right person for both of you. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah. Gems.
yeah. Show's bad.
I know that in recent memory, or at least this is the way that we've gotten to know each other a little better, is you've been just not, maybe that's not just focused, but you've been more and more interested in providing more and more opportunities for younger photographers and
100%.
mentoring younger photographers. Where did that desire come from?
I think I saw an issue with the Instagram era photographer, and let me preface that. I was sort of just having conversations with a lot of photographers, and a lot of them undervalued themselves, and most of these guys came up after me, so they're younger, and I'm like, yo, why? I started educating colleagues and friends of mine to value their work more, to package their brand better, to understand the worth more, so that way when they're presented with the opportunity, that they come ready. They don't have to guesstimate their value all the time. Like put a number on it, that you feel comfortable presenting to someone else, that doesn't make you feel greedy. You know what I mean? And it is my belief that by raising the next generation of photographers right, by teaching them the value of their work, it's going to help the veterans, the people that are currently working, to continue to raise their value. Because if everybody's coming up together. Like that's just how it's going to work. Whereas in the present situation, that is, most photographers coming up don't know their value, and clients are taking advantage of that, where they're like, oh, just help me do this. You get your friends in, get guest lists, get free drinks or whatever. But that doesn't really help the photographer, and ultimately it hurts the client as well, because one, the client gets crappy results, and two, the photographers don't learn. They just learn how bad of a photographer they are, and it's not constructive, nothing.
Yeah, seriously.
So I'm trying to let as much people know within my circle that their art is worth it. There's plenty of work for everyone.
Yeah.
At all price ranges, but there should be a minimum range. Where if a client wants a photographer, any client, there should be just a cross knowledge, that it's going to cost you at least $100, $120, $150, whatever.
Yeah, because I would say the general feeling from maybe just those types of people is that it doesn't cost money, is that photographers will work for free. That's sort of the general feeling, I think, that I get from a lot of people.
Yeah, and the thing about photography is some people have the eye for it, and some people have the talent for it, and some people have the business mind behind it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you kind of break them down to see which one does better financially. Historically, is always the one that's more toward the business side of it than the artistic side of it, right? So the Instagram era teaches the artistic side of it. That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't talk about money. It doesn't talk about finance. It doesn't talk about rent more often rather than buy. It doesn't talk about methods of invoicing. It doesn't talk about client communication. None of that. Just shows you beautiful photos. So there's a big gap there, and and photographers are coming up younger and younger. So you kind of want to just start the conversation whenever you get a chance. And people are kind of shy about talking the prices because it's a small community in a sense where people are very guarded and they don't want to lose their client to a cheaper paying or cheaper price photographer. And I understand that. But that also says a lot about your client who will willing to go that route.
Yeah,
So,
if they're willing to go for someone that's like $100 cheaper just because of the $100.
you don't really want those clients anyway.
No. Well, those aren't the clients evidently that you're gonna have for a long time anyway.
Yeah. So as a client, and we're kind of getting off topic here, but from a client's perspective, an ideal client's perspective, they want the work and they're willing to pay for it. Not too much, just the right amount. And it's important to have a communication to assess what it is they need. If they don't know what they need, help them figure it out, because that will legitimize your price. You know what I mean? You have an insight. Like, what about this? What about that? Have you thought about this? You know what I mean? Yeah. But the point of how this originated is I just want to make sure we're all benefiting from one another in a positive way, not in a blood-sucking way, The competition there shouldn't be a competition between photographers in the gig economy. There should be competition between the clients getting the photographers. And that only happens really high up. Really high up. It's a very small percentage.
I wish we had like a lot more time, but we only have a couple more minutes, unfortunately.
Shit, I kept talking, didn't I?
No, it's all good. This is good. I need 2 food recommendations from you.
All right.
In Toronto.
In Toronto.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Masaki Saito. Too expensive. Way too expensive. Best sushi I ever had in my life. Ruined sushi for me forever. Until I go back there, I can't have sushi anywhere else. Masaki Saito. Where else? I don't know, man. This is a tricky one. All right. Ten Ren in Markham. Taiwanese flavor. What up?
I've heard that you had the best food in Toronto is like at least like 40 minutes away.
Something like that. I don't know.
Okay. Thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Brother. Thanks, man.
Okay. This has been the Drew Yorke Show. Until next time. Thanks for watching.
Oh, wait. Wrong show.